Do you truly believe that your separation from your mother was a mere coincidence? Could it be that everything you've experienced has led you here for a reason, for such a time as this? No, this is not random. This is divine intervention. God, in His infinite wisdom, has deliberately set you apart, and every ounce of pain, every moment of heartache, every tear you've shed has purpose. It's part of His preparation for you. What if everything you've gone through, every trial and tribulation, was designed to sharpen you, to refine you, and to strengthen you for a calling higher than anything you could have imagined? Take a moment to reflect. What if this journey of separation wasn't meant to break you, but to build you into something more resilient, more capable of carrying the weight of a divine mission? Ask yourself, are you truly ready? Ready to confront the reason why God allowed this division in your life? Could it be that God's purpose for you is so great that He had to remove certain people and situations from your life to ensure you could rise to your full potential? In Matthew 10:34-36, Jesus said, "Do not suppose that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I've come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household." These are not just words. They are a profound truth that speaks to the core of your current experience. Jesus knew that to follow His path, to fulfill a higher calling, there would be a necessary division, even within the family. The very people who are closest to you, those who you would expect to understand your journey, might be the ones who can't. Does this resonate with you? Are you beginning to see that your separation is not a punishment, but a part of God's design? Think about the example of Abraham, who was called by God to leave his country and his family, not because of any wrongdoing, but because God had a bigger plan for him. In Genesis 12:1, God said to Abraham, "Go from your country, your people and your father's household to the land I will show you." Could it be that your calling requires a similar kind of sacrifice, a stepping away from the familiar, from the people who may not fully grasp your destiny? This is a pivotal moment in your life, a time for you to recognize the deeper purpose behind the pain of separation. You are not alone in this struggle. God is walking with you, refining you for something extraordinary. Do not be afraid to face this truth. It may hurt now, but it is in this pain that your strength is forged. Are you ready to discover the higher calling God has set before you? Chosen ones, God allowed your mum to be toxic. For a reason. You've felt it, haven't you? The heavy burden of separation, like a canyon dividing your soul from the comfort you longed for. It made you wonder about your place in this world, your worth, and perhaps even God's plan for you. But this separation was never a mistake. It was part of His divine purpose, a sacred act of design from the Creator Himself. God allowed that distance not to hurt you, but to create space where He could work within you, free from the entanglements of earthly ties. The absence you endured wasn't a sign of neglect, but a process of purification, much like a craftsman refining precious metal in fire to reveal its brilliance. When God allowed you to be separated from your mother, it wasn't to deprive you of love, but to prepare you for something greater, a love so vast, so eternal, that it could only come from Him. In that silence, His voice has been louder, His guidance more direct. He has used this space to draw you closer, to clarify your purpose, unclouded by distractions. What you felt as loss was, in truth, His way of setting you apart for something extraordinary. Your journey was never meant to mirror that of others. From the beginning, your path was unique. While many around you found security in their mother's embrace, your path took you through seasons of solitude. You may have stood alone as a child, questioning why your experiences were different. why isolation seemed to be your companion. But this solitude was not a punishment. It was a form of preparation, a season where God was strengthening you. Think of David, shepherding his father's sheep in isolation, not knowing that the same fields would prepare him for the battles that awaited him as king. God saw the love you yearned for and the connection you desired, but he knew that your calling required a different kind of preparation. He needed you to rise above earthly attachments, to find your strength in him alone. The void you felt wasn't empty, it was filled with his divine intention. God knew that your mission would demand a resilience that isn't formed in comfort, but in trials. It would require a faith unshaken by the absence of human affirmation, sustained instead by his eternal, unchanging love. The world you live in is a battlefield, and you have been trained like a warrior in solitude. While others found their strength in their mother's care, you were learning to lean entirely on God. In the quiet, in the moments that felt barren, you discovered him. And in that discovery, you found a love that is flawless, a love that doesn't waver, doesn't fail, and doesn't abandon. That absence you wrestled with has forged within you a strength that others cannot comprehend, a resilience rooted in God's power. This journey was never about deprivation, but about preparation. As Isaiah 41:10 reminds us, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." In his hands, your pain has been transformed into purpose, your isolation into intimacy with him. Think of this: your struggles, your questions, and even your pain were all part of a divine plan to shape you. What if this path you walked, though difficult, was the very training ground for the extraordinary calling that God has placed on your life? What if the absence you felt wasn't meant to break you, but to equip you with a strength and faith that can change the lives of others? This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of something far greater than you can imagine. The separation you've experienced is not a punishment. It is your training ground, a sacred space where God is shaping you for his purpose. Imagine a sculptor standing before a block of marble. With each deliberate strike of the chisel, he cuts away what is unnecessary to reveal the masterpiece hidden within. That's what God has been doing in your life. Every moment of distance, every pang of longing has been an intentional stroke, carefully carving you into the vessel he needs for his work. You may have felt the weight of this process, a burden that seemed unbearable at times. But in truth, that burden was never meant to break you. It was designed to transform into wings, wings that will carry you to heights you never thought possible. In his infinite wisdom, God removed the comforts of this world, not to deprive you, but to bestow upon you something far greater, a divine purpose that surpasses earthly understanding. Have you considered that you were never meant to follow the crowd or be bound by the same ties that hold others? From the beginning, your life was set apart. God separated you, not to leave you alone, but to sanctify you, to claim you as his own. Just as he called the Israelites out of Egypt, away from the familiar, to mold them into a holy nation, he has called you out of ordinary attachments to prepare you for extraordinary work. The love you once sought in human connections, he replaced with a love that is untainted, pure, and eternal. What you perceived as absence was, in reality, his presence. And what you thought was isolation was his personal invitation to step into the fullness of who you were created to be. Remember how God called Moses into the wilderness, away from the distractions of Pharaoh's palace, to reveal his plans for delivering a nation. In the same way, your separation has been your wilderness, a place where God could speak to you directly, where the noise of the world could not interfere with his voice. It's in these moments of solitude that your identity in Christ becomes clear. Ephesians 2:10 reminds us, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Do you see now? You are not just being shaped, you are being prepared for a mission that was ordained before time began. This journey hasn't been easy, but every tear you've shed, every question you've asked, has been part of a divine plan to make you unshakable. God's hand has been at work in ways you may not fully understand yet, but the masterpiece He is crafting will be revealed in due time. What if this very separation, which once felt like a wound, is the key to unlocking your destiny? As you step forward, consider the weight of His calling. He has chosen you, not in spite of your struggles, but because of them. The world may see brokenness, but God sees beauty. The world may call it loneliness, but God calls it preparation. This is your time to embrace the masterpiece He is revealing, knowing that every strike of the chisel has been guided by the hand of the Creator Himself. God's decision to create distance between you and your mother was never an accident, never a careless twist of fate. It was a deliberate act of divine design, a signal that you are set apart, chosen for a purpose far beyond the ordinary. While the separation may have felt like abandonment or even neglect, it was never meant to diminish you. Instead, it was part of God's refining fire, a process designed to strip away the unnecessary and build within you a resilience that could not be formed in comfort. The conflict, the strained words, the silence heavy with unspoken hurt, these were not meaningless moments. They were tools in the hands of the Almighty, like a hammer against stone, breaking away the parts of you that could not remain for the path ahead. Each cutting remark and every misunderstanding wasn't just an obstacle, it was a step in your transformation. Through this divine chiseling, He has shaped you into someone unyielding, someone capable of withstanding the storms that will inevitably come. Think back to those arguments, those moments of tension that left your heart raw. They were more than just disagreements. They were battles of the spirit, struggles that tested the foundation of who you are and who you are meant to be. The criticisms that seemed endless, the manipulation that twisted your emotions, the emotional sabotage that left you questioning your worth. None of these were random. Each of these wounds had a purpose. They were the blows of a master craftsman, intentional strikes designed to prepare you for the extraordinary. The Bible reminds us in Romans 5:3-4. We also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. Do you see it now? The very things that once brought you pain were producing something far greater within you. They were building perseverance, refining your character, and planting within you an unshakable hope that the world cannot take away. Each fiery trial you faced was forming armor that others do not have. Where many crumble under life's pressures, you stand firm. The battles with your mother, though painful, have been some of the fiercest you've endured. Yet, through them, you gained a strength forged in fire. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the furnace, you emerged from the flames not consumed, but purified and prepared for what lies ahead. What if these scars, the ones you've carried so long, are not signs of defeat, but marks of victory? What if the pain you endured wasn't meant to break you, but to make you unshakable? Consider how each wound, each tear, and each moment of doubt has brought you closer to becoming the person God has called you to be. Your resilience, your ability to withstand what others cannot, is evidence of His work in you. Through the separation, God has made you stronger. Through the criticism, He has sharpened you. And through the pain, He has prepared you. What the world saw as abandonment, God used as a sacred process of sanctification. Now, you stand as proof that even the deepest wounds can be transformed into something beautiful in the hands of the Creator. This isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your testimony, a story of triumph that only God could write. The question that lingers in your soul, the one that refuses to be silenced, is simply this: why? Why did your relationship with your mother feel like a battlefield, marked by pain rather than peace? The answer, though difficult to accept, carries profound truth. God never intended for you to anchor your identity in her. Her presence, with all its complexities, be it jealousy, unresolved wounds, or harsh words, was not designed to define you, but to redirect you. Each moment you reached for her validation and found none was a lesson, a divine training ground. God was teaching you that your worth cannot be measured by earthly approval, not even by those closest to you. Instead, your true value rests in Him, unshaken and eternal. The scriptures echo this truth in Psalm 27:10. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Do you see the thread here? Even in the absence of a mother's unconditional love, God's arms have always been open, ready to receive you. Every wound inflicted by her words or actions was a reminder that earthly relationships, no matter how significant, are insufficient to fill the void only God can occupy. Through the pain of rejection, He has been redirecting you to His embrace, the only place where true security and identity are found. This separation, this emotional chasm between you and your mother, is not a mark of failure or rejection. On the contrary, it is evidence of a higher calling. While others may be entangled in the toxic dynamics of familial expectations and generational pain, God has set you apart. The distance you feel is not a curse, but a gift, one that grants you freedom from the emotional chains that bind so many. This separation was never about isolating you, but about sanctifying you, preparing you for a life that transcends the ordinary boundaries of human relationships. Think of Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, estranged from the family he once knew. What seemed like abandonment was, in fact, a divine setup for greatness. Genesis 50:20 reveals his revelation. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Could it be that your own pain mirrors His? That the very wounds meant to break you are the ones preparing you for a destiny far greater than you imagined? The emotional distance you've endured is more than a painful reality. It is a signal, a sign that you have been chosen. Every lonely night, every tear shed, and every moment of confusion has been shaping you into someone extraordinary. While others remain tethered to the weight of their past, you have been given the freedom to rise above, to walk a path few dare to tread. This is not the mark of one who is abandoned. It is the mark of one who is called. And this calling, this purpose that burns within you, is what connects you to a greater community of those who have walked similar paths. Your journey is not meant to be solitary forever. Like Elijah, who thought he stood alone only to discover there were others set apart just like him. 1 Kings 19:18. You are not alone. There is a tribe, a gathering of kindred spirits who understand the depth of your wounds and the strength they've birthed within you. Communities like the Obsidian Inner Order exist for this very reason, to unite those who have faced the fiery trials of life and emerged refined, aligned and ready to embrace their divine calling. If you have ever felt the ache of separation and wrestled with finding your true identity beyond the ties of this world, know that this is your sanctuary. Here, among others who share your story, you can rise. Together, you can step boldly into the destiny God has prepared, leaving behind the pain of yesterday and walking fully into the greatness He has ordained for you. This separation is not the end of your story. It is the foundation of your testimony. It is the evidence of a God who has never left you, who has been molding you for something extraordinary all along. Will you step into this calling and claim the life He has set apart for you? The choice is yours, and the time is now. The division you faced within your family is not a random occurrence, but one that echoes deeply within Scripture, and aligns with God's greater plan for your life. In Luke 12:51-53, Jesus plainly declares, "Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you but division." He goes on to describe how even the closest relationships, parents and children, siblings, will feel the strain of this divine separation. This is not to create chaos for chaos's sake, but to carve out a path that leads you closer to Him. The wedge that has come between you and your mother is not a punishment. It is the mark of a higher calling. God has drawn a line, setting you apart from what is earthly and ordinary to prepare you for something extraordinary and eternal. This division begins at the heart of the family, the very place where ties often run the deepest and expectations are the strongest. Yet even Jesus experienced this. In Luke 2:48-49, when his parents were anxious after searching for him, Jesus gently but firmly reminded them, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" Here we see a profound truth. Earthly family, as vital as it is, does not hold ultimate authority over God's purpose for your life. Like Jesus, you too are being called to prioritize the heavenly mission over earthly expectations, even when it creates misunderstanding or conflict. Your relationship with your mother may feel like a battlefield, a place of constant misunderstanding, tension, or criticism. But understand this: her inability to see your worth or to understand your calling is not your burden to bear. It is a reflection of the limitations of earthly relationships, not of your value. God's purpose for you is so profound, so unique, that it required this painful separation. Why? Because He knew that if you clung too tightly to her approval or her understanding, you might miss the fullness of what He has prepared for you. This division is not just about loss, it's about transformation. The disapproval, jealousy, or manipulation you've endured were not random acts meant to break you. Instead, they were tools in the hands of the master sculptor, shaping you into someone who can withstand the trials and fulfill the mission ahead. God is not careless with His chosen ones. Every moment of pain, every harsh word, every lonely tear is allowed for a purpose: to strip away what is unnecessary and refine what is eternal. Remember, even Jesus' family struggled to grasp the magnitude of His mission. In Mark 3:21, His own family thought He was out of His mind because they couldn't comprehend His divine purpose. Yet Jesus did not allow their misunderstanding to deter Him. He continued steadfastly, knowing that His ultimate identity and mission came from His Father in heaven. Likewise, your mother's inability to understand your journey does not diminish the sacredness of your calling. It only highlights the depth of the path you are walking, a path that many cannot comprehend because it is designed specifically for you. The criticisms and manipulations you faced were not intended to destroy you, but to strengthen you. Like the refining of gold, you've been put through the fire so that your true brilliance could emerge. This process is painful, but it is purposeful. God has been forging you into someone who can rise above earthly wounds, someone resilient enough to carry out His divine will. The separation is not a sign of rejection, but of preparation. It is the sacred space where God's voice becomes louder and His purpose for you becomes clearer. In this space, you are no longer confined by the expectations of others, even those you love the most. Instead, you are free to embrace the fullness of who God has called you to be. Take heart in knowing that this division is not the end, but the beginning of something far greater. It is the evidence of God's hand on your life, setting you apart for a purpose that transcends the ordinary. Will you trust the process? Will you let this season of separation propel you into the divine destiny that awaits? Remember, what feels like loss is often the doorway to a deeper relationship with the one who never fails to understand or love you completely. The division within your family especially with your mother, is not a sign of abandonment or failure. It is the clearest evidence that God has marked you for a higher calling. When earthly ties become strained and the love you expected feels absent, it is not because you are unworthy, it is because you are chosen. God, in His infinite wisdom, often uses separation as a tool to refine and prepare His chosen ones for the extraordinary plans He has for them. Every tear you've cried, every argument, every heartache has been a purposeful part of the journey, shaping you into the person He needs you to be. Your separation from your mother is not random. It is a divine act of preparation, orchestrated to ensure that nothing binds you to a relationship incapable of supporting your God-given mission. This rift, no matter how painful, is a reminder that earthly relationships, while meaningful, are not your ultimate source of identity or fulfillment. God has allowed this distance so that you would look beyond the temporal and embrace the eternal. When the love and support of a parent fall short, it is easy to feel unworthy or forsaken. But God's purpose in this is greater than you can imagine. Scripture reminds us in Psalm 27:10, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me." Your earthly mother's inability to meet your emotional needs is not the end of your story. Instead, it is an invitation to experience God as the perfect parent, whose love and validation surpass anything the world can offer. Every unresolved tension, every unmet need, is a divine catalyst pushing you closer to God. What may feel like a painful void is in fact a sacred space where God draws you into His presence. He steps into the gaps, not as a consolation prize, but as the ultimate fulfillment. This is His design, to redirect your focus from what is temporary and flawed to what is eternal and perfect. Through this process, God is teaching you to rely solely on Him. He is breaking the chains of earthly dependence so that you can walk freely in His purpose. Your struggles with your mother are not meaningless. They are the refining fire that molds you into someone unshakable. As Isaiah 48:10 declares, "See, I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. These trials are shaping you for a destiny that is far greater than the pain you've endured." The division is not merely about what you have lost, but about what you are gaining. By stepping away from relationships that cannot sustain your calling, you are stepping into a deeper relationship with God, a connection that offers true love, unshakable support, and eternal validation. He is setting you apart, sanctifying you for a purpose that far exceeds human understanding. You are not bound by the limitations of your earthly family. You are chosen, separated, and called to greatness. Trust in the process, for the very pain that feels like a loss is the foundation upon which God is building your strength, resilience, and divine purpose. Through every heartache, He is bringing you closer to Him, preparing you for the extraordinary life He has planned for you. God is not simply a replacement for what you lack. He is the original source of everything your soul craves. While an earthly mother may provide nurture, God offers something far deeper, a love that is unwavering, boundless, and infinitely perfect. The separation you feel is not a punishment or an oversight. It is a deliberate removal of distractions that would keep you from fully leaning into the strength and protection only God can offer. What you perceive as emotional neglect or failure from your mother is, in fact, the space where God's presence takes root, 13:39, and grows stronger. He does not just meet your needs, He surpasses them. In this space of separation, God's role in your life becomes undeniable. The world may tell you that the bond between parent and child is unbreakable and essential, but God has chosen to break that mold for you. The earthly ties that others cling to God has loosened for you to ensure that your attachment to Him is unshakable. He wanted your dependence to be on Him alone, not diluted by the affections and shortcomings of a human relationship. Through every tear and 14:15, every moment of silence from your mother, He was building in you a spiritual resilience that draws its strength from a well that never runs dry. Your earthly mother, with all her limitations, could never have filled the divine role that God holds in your life. Her inability to meet your emotional or spiritual needs was never a reflection of your worth, but rather a signal that those needs were always meant to be fulfilled by your Heavenly Father. God did not design you to rely on human affection because He knew that no human could give you the perfect love, guidance, and protection that He offers. The separation you feel is in reality an invitation to lean fully on Him, to find in Him everything you have ever longed for. This separation was always part of God's plan to strengthen your dependence on Him. As the emotional ties to your earthly mother weakened, your connection to God intensified. The more distant that relationship became, the closer you were drawn into the arms of your Creator. He saw your pain, your confusion, and He has been waiting for you to realize that He is the one who provides all that you need. He is not simply a spiritual crutch, but the firm foundation on which you stand, the everlasting source of strength that no earthly relationship could ever match. You are commanded to honor your mother, not because of how she treated you, but because of who you are called to be. The division between you is undeniable. It was forged by divine purpose, not mere circumstance. God's plan for you required this separation, yet even in the midst of this distance, His word remains clear. You must honor her. This command, found in Deuteronomy 5:16, is not conditional upon her behavior or the pain you've endured, but upon your identity as a chosen one. Your response to this divine instruction is a reflection of your obedience to God, not of her worthiness. Honoring your mother is a radical act of spiritual defiance against the wounds inflicted. It is not about erasing the scars or pretending that the emotional distance doesn't exist. It is about rising above the pain, stepping into the calling that sets you apart, and choosing to walk in the path God has laid before you. To honor her means to acknowledge the role she has played, however flawed, in shaping your life. It means refusing to let bitterness take root, and instead allowing grace to flourish in its place. Your honor is not submission to her control, nor is it an endorsement of the wrongs done. It is a reflection of your strength in God, a strength that enables you to rise above the hurt and live according to the standards He has set for you. This act of honoring her is crucial for your spiritual growth. It forces you to confront the raw edges of your pain, not in surrender, but in victory. It transforms you, teaching you to forgive, not because she deserves it, but because you need it. In doing so, you break free from the chains of resentment that would otherwise hinder your spiritual progress. The honor you offer is not for her benefit, but for yours. It is a gateway to the blessings that God has prepared for you. To carry unforgiveness, to harbor bitterness, is to close yourself off from those blessings. God is not asking you to reconcile or repair what has been irreparably broken. He is asking you to rise above it, to honor her in the midst of the division, because your obedience to His command is what matters most. In honoring your mother, you align yourself with God's will, and that alignment is where true spiritual power resides. You are not simply appeasing her or fulfilling some societal expectation. You are declaring that your allegiance is to God's word, even when it costs you. This is not about your mother's worthiness or your own justification. It is about the kind of person you are called to be. You are chosen, set apart, and God requires more from you than the world demands from others. The honor you show your mother, despite the division, is not about her. It is about your obedience to the divine calling on your life. The separation you've endured is not a punishment, but a sacred crucible. a place where God's refining fire burns away what no longer serves your divine purpose. You are not like the rest, tethered to the familiar and content with the ordinary. God has chosen you for something higher, something extraordinary, and this calling requires a transformation that can only happen through the cutting away of what is not essential. This pruning, though painful, is God's method of preparing you to bear fruit that will last, fruit that will bring glory to His name and advance His kingdom. In John 15:2, Jesus says, "Every branch that does bear fruit He prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful." The relationships that have been severed, the comforts you've been stripped of, are not losses but opportunities for growth. The very act of separation is God's way of ensuring that nothing distracts or detracts from the purpose He has placed within you. What may feel like abandonment is, in truth, His divine strategy to shape you into the person He needs you to be. The isolation you feel, the sharp sting of loneliness, is not a void, but holy ground. It is here, in the silence of human connection, that God's voice speaks the loudest. He whispers truths into your spirit that cannot be drowned out by the noise of the world. In the absence of familiar relationships, you are drawn closer to the Creator who knows you intimately. As Psalm 34:18 reminds us, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." It is in this sacred solitude that He is binding your wounds and infusing you with His strength. You are in the midst of a divine forging process, much like the refining of precious metals. Just as gold is purified by fire to remove impurities, God is using this separation to strip away the weaknesses, doubts, and fears that could hinder your calling. He is making you unshakable, a vessel fit for His purpose. Isaiah 48:10 declares, "I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction." Each moment of pain, each tear shed, is not wasted. It is part of the divine process that strengthens and equips you for the battles ahead. This separation is not rejection, it is preparation. God is promoting you to a higher plane, one that demands a level of strength and faith that cannot be built in comfort. The relationships that once defined you, the ties that may have limited your vision, are being removed so that you can step fully into the identity God has ordained for you. While others may cling to the familiar, you are being called to rise above, to become someone who walks boldly in the plans of the Almighty. The pain of separation is real, but so is the purpose behind it. Trust that God is at work in the midst of your loneliness, shaping you into a person of resilience and power. The division you experience is the evidence of your destiny, the proof that you are being prepared for something far greater than what you've left behind. In time, you will see that this season of pruning was not a loss, but a divine setup for the extraordinary. You are not being abandoned, you are being anointed. Do not let your heart be troubled by the separation you've experienced with your mother. What feels like loss is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a divine narrative that God is writing over your life. This separation is not a mark of failure, but a testament to the greatness of the calling upon you. Just as a sculptor must chip away at the stone to reveal the masterpiece within, so too is God removing the ties that would hinder the unveiling of your true purpose. This distance is not punishment, it is preparation. God is setting you apart for a mission that requires clarity, strength, and focus. Earthly relationships, as dear as they may be, can sometimes cloud the vision God has for you. When He removes distractions, even those that feel foundational, it is because He sees the greater picture. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." What may feel like a wound now is, in fact, a tool in His hand, carving out a path that leads directly to Him. Your separation is not rejection, it is refinement. Each moment of distance is God sharpening you, molding you into a vessel capable of carrying the weight of His glory. Just as He called Abraham to leave his homeland and family to fulfill a divine covenant, so too is He calling you to step out of what is familiar and comfortable. In Genesis 12:1, God said, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." Like Abraham, you are being led to a place of promise, a place where your purpose will flourish beyond the limitations of earthly ties. Let this separation be a reminder that you are chosen. Not everyone is called to walk the path you are on. The division is evidence that God is orchestrating something extraordinary in your life. It is in the space of loss that He reveals Himself as the ultimate source of love, strength, and purpose. Where human relationships may falter, His presence becomes undeniable. Isaiah 41:10 offers His reassurance. "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." In this season, God is not just removing distractions. He is building within you the resilience to rise above circumstances that others might never overcome. The separation is the fire that forges, the wind that refines, and the hand that uplifts. What feels like a breaking is actually a making of someone who is unshakable, someone who can carry out the divine purpose for which they were created. Do not mourn the ties that have been severed, but rejoice in the God who is shaping you for His glory. Trust in the divine plan, for what He is preparing for you exceeds anything you could imagine. You are not abandoned, you are being anointed. This separation is the proof of your calling and the preparation for a destiny that only God could design. Rise, for you are chosen. You were not made to blend into the ordinary. You were designed for the extraordinary, and every step you've taken has led you to this moment, where God's plan for your life unfolds in ways you couldn't have imagined. This separation, this distance from those you once held close, is not rejection. It is purification. It is God's way of refining you, ensuring that nothing stands in the way of the divine purpose He has set before you. Each moment of pain, each experience of loneliness, is part of the process that shapes you into who you were always meant to be. Now is the time to fully embrace this truth. Your struggles are not in vain. They are a testimony of the work God is doing within you, molding and preparing you for something greater than what you can see. You're not defined by your past relationships, the misunderstandings, or the pain of separation. You're defined by the divine calling that marks your life. The journey ahead may not always be easy, but remember, you are being prepared for greatness. Step forward boldly, knowing that every challenge you faced, every distance you felt, is part of God's perfect plan to elevate you. Your story, your growth, is a testament to His power, and it's time to share it. Your testimony can serve as a beacon of hope for others who are walking a similar path. Let your experience inspire others to find strength in their separation and to trust in the unwavering faithfulness of God's perfect timing. If this message has touched your heart, if it resonates with your journey, take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Let others know they are not alone. And if you've made it this far, know that you are aligned with something greater. This is your moment. The number 777 is often seen as a sign of divine completion and spiritual alignment, and today I believe God is speaking to you through this number. You are on the path to something extraordinary. Keep walking, keep trusting, and know that God's hand is upon you. May God bless you abundantly, guide you through every challenge, and elevate you to the heights He has called you to. Remember, you are not just surviving, you are thriving in His divine purpose.